Scientists of Reddit, what's the craziest or weirdest thing in your field that you suspect to be true, but is not yet supported fully by data? Chestnut blight was introduced in the United States in the early 1900s, and since then, all American chestnuts in much of the US cannot mature properly and will die at a nearly uniform stage in development. Much of the work I did in college was looking at the issue of the blight. My masters took me to propose that the chestnut gall wasp has a direct link to developmental challenges introduced by hormonal changes within the chemistry of C4 pathway photosynthesis. These changes are directly influencing a protein coupling mechanism failure and aiding the blight of the chestnut. My doctoral thesis is showing this without a doubt and will soon present ways to offset the population growth of the gall wasp and will soon allow chestnuts to be regrown naturally. They will then dominate our landscape again as they did early in our history. I have a personal specimen in the Smithsonian credited to my professor and I for being the first ones to document the gall wasp this far north on the east coast. Medical microbiology. I believe very soon, in terms of development of new treatments, that bacteriophages will replace the antibiotics. For Redditors who are not familiar with them, bacteriophages are essentially viruses that attack bacteria and bacteria only. Some of you might argue, well, there's good bacteria in our digestive system, right? True, bacteriophages have surfaced proteins that work like a lock and a key, and can only combine with certain types of bacteria. Antibiotics often cause many side effects and over the last 10 years have decreased in efficiency due to bacteria becoming resistant to new treatments. Also, antibiotics are delivered to the bloodstream and only happen upon bacteria, whereas bacteriophages can reach the bacteria and take over its replication machinery and replicate exponentially. Currently, bacteriophages are a relatively small part of medical research. Many studies are being conducted on the possibility of bacteriophages being utilized concurrently with antibiotics to increase the drug's efficacy, mainly by turning off the bacteria's defenses. Okay, I guess that's enough. Mobile version. Google for more information. TLDR, bacteriophages will replace antibiotics. Paleontology. Darwin's dilemma refers to the absence of known macroscopic fossils, excluding microbial stuff, from beneath the base of the Cambrian period, older than 541 million years, when he was first describing his theory of evolution. Everyone, including Darwin, expected that when fossils were found from before the Cambrian period, that they would be the ancestors of modern animals. Then when those fossils were found, Ediacara biota, we call them, after the Ediacara Hills in South Australia, they were enthusiastically classified as ancient jellyfish, ancient worms, etc. But it turns out that's a load of crap. Consensus is growing that almost none of those classifications were accurate. Instead, most Ediacaran organisms seem to have belonged to extinct groups unrelated to anything else alive today. And they lived in a world that was so different from the following 540 million years. They had modes of life distinct from any living macroscopic organisms. They were so eager to make everything fit into our neat little evolutionary narrative that for those decades we basically glossed over these crazy alien sort of ecosystems that could be critical to understanding the origins of complex life on other planets as well as our own. We're still just beginning to really understand it though. It's a very controversial field of paleontology. Chemistry. We will eventually be able to efficiently design enzymes to conduct complicated chemical transformations that would be otherwise impossible on unmodified substrates. A 2008 science paper, David Baker, Ken Ook, Forrest Michael, and a bunch of other awesome scientists showed proof of principle in designing a Dale's aldehyde enzyme in silico. They designed the necessary transition state in the protein sequence that would form the corresponding active site, built the protein, and it catalyzed the exact reaction they intended to catalyze. It's beautiful work, and they've done a lot of incredible things since then. Scott Miller's group at Yale has done similar things using much smaller peptide catalysts to do site-specific modification of things like vancomycin, which is an antibiotic in a very selective manner. What does this mean? Taking for example the development of antibiotics, we're running into problems of consistency. Bugs are developing immunity to existing antibiotics. Even our last resorts like vancomycin are starting to fail. We can bypass these resistant mechanisms by modifying the antibiotics at certain positions, but this can be an incredibly difficult process. If we could design protein catalysts to promote the desired reaction on the unmodified antibiotic in a highly selective manner, we can make libraries of antibiotics efficiently that we can tie us over until we develop some other manner of treating infections. Psychology/psychiatric. There is an ongoing discussion on the neurological and neurobiological correlates to depression. Psychiatry has focused on neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin because most antidepressants have effects on these transmitter systems and seem to help the patients over the course of many weeks. SSREs take at least 3 weeks to show measurable non-placebo effects in patients, but as a matter of fact, we still do not know why. A German psychiatrist now proposed a new model for depression, explaining it with a chronic overdose of cortisol, a hormone closely associated with stress. He was even able to treat patients with cortisol antagonists successfully and within hours of treatment. Very short explanation of the theory actually. His work has not been acknowledged very much until now, but I won't be surprised if there's anything true to it. Classics, archaeology, ancient science. A little late to the game on this one. And I'm not exactly a scientist, but here's my weird fact that may be true, although it's based on tenuous evidence. What we've found definitely in anthropological studies of cultures with a strong oral tradition, the one I'm familiar with is studies of people in the Balkans, is that oral memory is a lot better in other cultures that rely less on writing. That, for instance, is why Iliad and Odyssey could be passed down by oral tradition for centuries before they were written down relatively intact. As a result of this, some scholars have made the case that the date of the fall of Troy is preserved in the Iliad and Odyssey, based on their descriptions of astronomical phenomena, some of which are more dubious readings than others. The date given by astronomical dating lines up with the date archaeologists have determined for the destruction of Troy Villa, which the consensus of scholars accepts to be the Homeric Troy. Astronomy. There are these things called Lorimer bursts in radio astronomy. The first detected only a few years ago, only 4 detections since. Basically, it's a huge burst of noise that asks for a few milliseconds and then disappears. More here. The reason, by the way, these are so weird is they're huge bursts of energy and they come from about a half a visible universe away from us. This should not happen, and no one really has an idea of how these things would be generated since right now there are no models for it. Anyway, people still don't know what they are. There's some discussion that it was a weather phenomenon for a while, and one telling thing is so far only Parkes Observatory in Australia, where the dish was filmed, has seen them, so everyone in radio astronomy is eager to be the person who spots one at a non-Parkes observatory. So my weirdest thing is these things are crazy mysterious, but I like to think they're real and from far away. What can I say? I'm a romantic who loves curveballs thrown at us in science, and we barely have the technology to look for them. Plus, hey, it'd make a nice chapter in my thesis if I found one. Thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and hey, watch one of these videos. You might like it. You never know. Bye.